to talk to you about testing change, and we're going to talk a lot about a term, prototyping, which people find can be quite a confusing piece of terminology, but I'm going to relate it back to stuff that we do in our everyday lives and how it's affiliated with design and design thinking, and it's a methodology and a mindset actually for really making change happen in a very iterative sense. I'm also going to talk today about taking prototyping as a mindset to organisations, and this concept which I haven't coined but would like to discuss around fixing broken windows and improving organisations through prototyping methods. So let's start with the term prototyping. When I say it to people, we should make a prototype of that, I often get a confused look back because it's affiliated with a number of things. But I want to take this right back to the start, really, of thinking about mine and your life, and looking at ways in which we prototype in our everyday, whether it's at school, at home, in the workplace. And let's just take one of the first things that we do in the morning, which is get dressed. And the fact that I don't know about you, but I might seem very vain, I try a couple of outfits on, and I like to test how an outfit looks on me. We do that when we go shopping as well. And I'm essentially prototyping my outfit to find out what works and what doesn't. I normally hope that most of my wardrobe will work, but sometimes it doesn't. We do the same for when we're cooking, when you're trying out new meals. Maybe this spice might work or that didn't work, and you taste it to test if it works, if it doesn't, and you continue to iterate. We know that. I think it's the common rule of not adding lots of salt to something and doing it in a slow, iterative sense to get the taste right. If you're organising a big event for someone and you want to test out a venue, you might go have a meal there first to figure out if it's the right thing to do. So prototyping is something that we actually all do in our everyday lives. And from images like this that you're seeing, it's often been matched up with design and design industry from very physical product-based forms of prototyping. And as my background as originally an industrial designer studying product design, we spent a lot of time playing with blue foam, sketching things out to try and actually test ideas out before they were implemented and scaled up. And we've seen this before, and we've cited it before, which is a process called the double diamond from the Design Council. And what I'm going to do is talk you through where prototyping fits within that. And at the end of this presentation, I'm going to come back on myself and say that what I've just told you isn't really true, and that prototyping and developing concepts goes throughout the whole design process. But let's start with why prototyping hasn't really existed as a methodology within government, within public services for a long time. And that's because failure is bad, and we don't see failure as a good thing. And in fact, prototyping and testing and seeing if ideas work and what can be improved is seeing failure as a really good thing. That is a designer's job, is to actually make failure happen. So the product or the service that you might be implementing, you can find out how it can be improved really quickly. And often a lot of that is to do with a kind of cultural evaluation across public services. Our institutions have really stifled our ability to have some space to actually test ideas before they get implemented. And we have this mentality that everything must be finished before it's even been put in place. So when we talk about prototyping in a really straightforward sense, we mean bringing form to an idea and testing if it works, and doing that time and time again until we get to the right process. And I'm going to give you a quote of someone who actually taught me design, but I can't quite remember who it is, but it always stuck with me when we were designing products. And they said, you can't design something without putting it in people's hands to play with first. They will decide how they will use it. And that's really, really true, is that no matter how much you discuss a concept, you figure out how a service should work or how a product should be designed, until someone has actually been able to play, interact, touch, smell it, speak to it, we don't know what they'll say, what they'll do, how their behaviour will respond. And that is why we prototype things, so that we can test out that human reaction, the behaviour to the things that you're designing. So what you're seeing now is one of my first ever designs, which I always say looks like a lethal torture device. But is one of my first designs at art school, which was a coat hanger, and we were given a brief to redesign the humble coat hanger. And we went through that process of discovery, of researching, I guess, user needs around coat hangers, defining a problem, and then prototyping a solution. The research that I undertook was about following people around in Laura Ashley's and photographing them while they were trying on clothes. Sounds a bit strange, but that was my ethnographic research. And what I noticed, in a very trivial sense, is that the hook was getting in the way of people's chins. And that was really my definition period to say, well, let's take away that hook and actually find a way that we can design a product that will fit into a shop like Laura Ashley's and not have that in place. So what you see on the screen is a little pivot point which allowed the coat hanger to be pulled apart and put around someone's neck. And in a really important way, we tested it and prototyped it to make sure it didn't strangle someone when they tried on a dress and moved their shoulders like this to see what it looks like in the mirror. But this final design that we made eventually out of mahogany wood, we made, I think, about 100 paper versions of it using those little gold pivot points that you get in stationery shops. We then moved on to blue foam, we then moved on to wood, and we went through an iterative cycle of changing the shape, the curves, and constantly testing on people to make sure it worked. And that's a form of prototyping. It's taking that mindset to actually know that the thing you're designing might not work, but you can make it better. And what you're seeing now is actually a concept from Cycle Hack, which is a creative event bringing people together to prototype solutions to cycling in the city. And this one hack was brilliant because it took some on-the-ground ethnographic research, watching pedestrians stand at traffic lights, and when they couldn't hear a bike coming around the corner, they stepped out. So sensory, they heard a car, they wouldn't cross out, but if they heard a bike, they wouldn't hear a bike, they would just cross the road. And it's dangerous for everyone involved. So the guys at Cycle Hack developed this concept that they could put some signage up at traffic lights, key points where there's tight corners in the city, and warn people that a bike might be turning, and hopefully get them to look left or right to find out if a bike was coming. And so this prototype they made, and I think this is a really interesting story in itself because this was the first cycle hack that they did, and when they spoke to the local council, they had an attitude that people would actually just vandalise and take things down that were put out in the city. These guys made this out of paper and a printer, and they went up and put it out in the city. And when they filmed and they watched people actually, using and interacting with it, people sort of noticed it. But then only from observation and prototyping, when they pressed the button and they stepped out, they'd step out in front of the traffic light. So actually we knew we needed to take that sign from the front, as you see it on the screen now, to the other side and scale up in a much bigger capacity. And I know that seems like a really trivial design and a really trivial prototype, but it serves a purpose as a great example of how you should try things out to see people's human and behavioural response to them so we can improve them and make them better. And just coming back to that design process in the double diamond again, we see this as a coming together of what we've been discussing: discovery is research, definition is problem finding and defining user needs, and developing prototypes to then solve those user needs. So when we're prototyping, and I've talked a lot about products and physical things, we can prototype services too. And in previous design videos that we've done, we've visited the concept of service design and creating end-to-end experiences. And we've talked about the touch points of services, those core moments of interaction, whether it's a website, whether it's a phone call, whether it's walking into a centre, whether it's the name of a service on a piece of paper. And we can test and prototype those touch points of the services and find out if they work for people in lots of different ways, which we're going to talk about in a bit. And we can test end-to-end experiences as well, so we can test really small bits of services and the whole end-to-end experience. And I want to mention that I said at the start what was prototyping, and it being a way of bringing form to an idea and a concept, but also testing it. Well, if we start with realising a concept first, and again it's another example on the screen from Cycle Hack, when these guys had an idea, they discussed it, but until they actually sketched it out, nobody could understand the core functions and how it looked, how it felt, what content needed to be on that screen. So by actually realising the concept using sketching methodologies and what we're going to discuss is mock-ups, no one was able to actually get a feel for the form of the map that they were designing in this case. So a mock-up, a realisation, is a prototype, and it just allows, in a really democratic way, lots of people to collaborate on the design of something. And to be honest, I've spent a lot of time with organisations we've worked with at Snook when there's 18 months of meeting notes about a new website and people arguing over the functionality. And we spent 10 minutes with people, and genuinely only 10 minutes, sketching out a concept, for a new website in the form of a wireframe and a mock-up. And we've managed to get everyone on board within those 10 minutes. So sketching and visualising concepts is really, really important and a really core element of prototyping. And from our background of working in government and my background of working inside public services, I see prototyping as not just a method or a tool that's used at one point in any given part of a design process, but actually as a format of continuous improvement. And you see this from processes like Toyota Way, Ono, who puts their frontline staff on the shop floor as soon as they join the company to find ways in which they can improve the service. At Snook, we ask people to look for ways in which we can continuously improve our own service and our own internal projects as well. So prototyping is a mindset that can actually become the lifeblood and the DNA of any organisation to continuously improve what it does. And it can be operationalised as well to really find out moments in organisations' cycles and development processes to create safe space for failure to test new ideas and products. And having worked in public services prior to Snook in this programme, I've seen concepts that have been developed at tables and just implemented that have failed and wasted public money because we didn't test them and talk to people about them and let them trial them first. So prototyping can save us money and make sure we get it right first time and continue to improve it. And on that note of continuous improvement, there's a brilliant blog post I forever refer to by Ben Holliday, who's the head of design at MOJ. And he wrote this brilliant blog post that picked out NYPD's approach to reducing crime in around about, I think it was the late 70s and 80s in New York. And they talked about this concept and developed this theory of fixing broken windows, and whether you believe it worked or didn't, they went around spotting all the windows that they could fix in an attempt and a bid to further reduce the knock-on effects of an area looking particularly disrupted and bad and leading to more crime. And Ben talks about taking this concept to organisations and actually looking for the broken windows that you can fix. And I love this quote from his blog post that says, "All service delivery and its success is a result of how we work together. The small things all around us and the places we live and work really matter. If not dealt with, the smaller things, they have the potential to grow into much bigger things." And what you see on screen in the background of that quote is actually Snook's Excel spreadsheet of our onboarding process, which we're constantly trying to fix. This is a live and a living document that anybody can visit. And our operations manager has been working with our staff to figure out how to make it better. So when someone else comes on board and says, "Oh, you forgot to link that policy in my onboarding email when I joined the company and I didn't get this form and it came 4 weeks too late," we listen to that and we fix it right away. So a prototype can be a really small thing, like including a link to a piece of evidence or a document inside an email. So fixing the broken windows is really, really important. So what I'm going to talk about now, just to give you some vocabulary that we're going to refer to a lot with our prototyping processes, is just some of the methods that we use. And prototyping, as we've discussed, is a mindset and an approach to making things happen and delivering them. But there are some methods that are nice to just know and refer to throughout this kind of process. So the first one that you can see on the screen is mock-up and paper prototyping. And I know that lots of people, and a lot of people I get to work with who are not from a design background or a sort of a visual background, they find sketching really, really difficult. But it's an amazing skill to be able to practice because, as we said, being able to actually sketch up, and as you can see from even this mock-up, you can really quickly bring a concept to life. So we use this across the whole design process to sketch ideas as we go, sketch what people are saying, and sometimes take just blank paper out and sketch from scratch the types of functions and features that they might like from a product, but by interpreting what they're saying. And then next is another form of mock-up, but it's what we call low fidelity, and this is keeping prototypes and mock-ups to a real low fidelity so that we focus on usability and function before aesthetics. And we've seen this from previous work that we've talked about with Lewis on the concept of form follows function. And I can't stress enough, which we're going to continue to talk about, is focusing on usability to really design things around rather than how something might look or feel. And what you can see here is very, very high level functions that you can then test with people and take back out to them. Because often when we've worked with clients and we've focused on the aesthetics, we've only just had clients say, move the button left, or move the quote up to the right, or change this to a slightly darker blue. And what we want to do is build things that work for people first, and then focus on how it might look. The third thing then really is taking those kind of mock-ups and prototyping skills that you can do live with somebody or yourself into a form of co-design and testing scenario. And what you can see on screen here is a piece of work we did testing and actually researching at the same time through prototyping, figuring out how Care Information Scotland's new content and service across lots of different channels from web to app to phone could service older people. And this is a silver surfer group from the east of Scotland actually using prototyping kits that we put together to build what they would like their web resource to look like. And we know we're not just focusing on web resource there, but we're getting them to tell us what kind of things and functions they would like to use to know about their own care and care for their relatives. So co-design is a really valuable way of getting out to people really quickly with the things that you've sketched or mocked up. The fourth one is one of my favourites because it has a great name, is the Wizard of Oz. And this is like pretending to be a computer, so it comes from old interaction design disciplines. And it's really about humans fulfilling digital processes and faking digital experiences. And the example here that you see is from an arts organisation we worked with in Nottingham with Broadway Cinema, who wanted to find a different way to take data and research from their audience members as they left shows. And instead of doing a survey, they wanted to find ways in which you could turn knobs and buttons to tell the organisation who you were, if you were male or female, how old you were, and if you enjoyed the show or not, what more you want from them. And so they built this machine that you can see. And the idea was once you turned all the knobs, you get a bespoke 3D or like laser cut printed little badge that would come out at the bottom. And so in order to prototype this, what they did was put someone underneath the table and make them cut it out as people were pretending to press these light up buttons, and then put their hands up and slowly feed it out. And it might sound really trivial, but it actually mocks up the entire experience of how something should work. And we'll talk a bit about some more digital faking concepts, but there's lots of ways you can very cheaply and creatively mock up experiences for people. The fifth one you're seeing here is desktop walkthroughs, and this image is actually from redesigning the layout of learning centres for Skills Development Scotland. So this idea is using lots of different figures, things like Lego or plasticine, to actually lay out scenarios. So it's really good for planning spaces and actually figuring out if stuff works or not. In the case of this piece of work, what we did was actually look at the timings that might take for people to fulfill certain things like building their CV on a computer or queuing up to get support from a member of staff inside the space. And so we timed it with actual Lego figures and found out that lots of people were queuing at the door as they were arriving, so we needed to design a place for them to sit and actually get them to start pre-filling their CV in while they were waiting to get an appointment. And so using this desktop walkthrough, you can actually really test physical spaces and ideas. It's also another great way of just getting people to use physical and visual methodologies to build ideas together. The next one that you see is a form of improvisation, and this comes from two dear friends of mine who are designers but also actors, and they use improvisation to design and test services. And that's a way of actually just giving people a scenario or a scene to act out, some really quick props. And as you can see on the screen, librarians pretending to be an interactive avatar with a piece of paper and their head put through it. And it might seem really silly, but it gets people thinking about actually what people would need in that service scenario. And it's also really fun too. The next one you're seeing is what we call Communicative Artefact. So this is like creating one element of your service and making it feel real so that you can take it out to people and they kind of think it might be a real thing. This is a piece of work that we did for Cargom, which is Scotland's national care agency. And they had to start rethinking about the way that they remarket their service. So we worked with their staff to figure out people who they are supporting and might choose their service, and remember with new forms of self-directed support, might want to purchase their service, so they need to remarket themselves. They wanted to find out how people would actually respond to their service visually. So we did a lot of research with their user groups, with their staff, and with them we built a series of postcards that advertised the new services, and we took these back out to people to test. And these artifacts actually became really, really great products that the marketing team could then use when hiring in designers, photographers, to say we need our new products and services to be branded like this. So as you can see, like a communicative artefact is a way of bringing a service to life. And the same here that you can see from Glasgow City Council when we worked on redesigning waste services. We created almost real artefacts of the posters that would go up in stairwells to show new bin collection times, to stickers that go onto a bin for you to be able to scan and figure out if it's a recycling bin for glass or for paper. And these are all really, really actually produced communicative artefacts that you can put into people's hands. The next one, and it's a bit more of a slightly different one, but we tend to refer to as like a speculative prototype. This is a project which was one of mine and Lauren, my business partner's project called My Police. And this was a project to look at how we could take feedback about the police online, put it in a democratic, apolitical space, and get responses from the police that didn't have to go through really official complaints routes, but could actually get service improvement happening by getting feedback to them about their service. And what's really important about this product is that building the design and technology for it and the mock-ups and going through that process was really easy, but actually getting people on board was really, really difficult to do, because at the time in 2009, social media was not something that people in the police force really wanted to engage with, and particularly allow people to say what they want about them online. And we spent a lot of time going around different police authorities in the back and beyond, in Wales and Sheffield, Sunderland, Devon and Cornwall, talking to police forces about why it was important to be online, be on Facebook and Twitter. But by having a product that people could actually try and test, it made it a little bit safer for people to actually say, well, maybe we could do this. And it won awards for democracy and social innovation. And I think that using speculative prototypes, so a form of actually delivering something that really changes or challenges the social innovation in society or behaviour, can be really beneficial. And as you can see on the screen, the BBC covered this, and we had a letter from the Chief Constable after running the pilot for 6 months on how we'd actually managed to achieve like parking changes in legislation in the area because of our platform. And you know, to be honest, and we're always honest about this, after the pilot was finished, it wasn't going to work as a business because the police went straight onto Facebook and Twitter. But by having a speculative prototype and something that people could trial and see actually working, and working positively, because 50% of the feedback was actually really good, they were able to make that leap behaviourally and changing things. So speculative prototype can really be about actually just trying something really new and giving people something to hold on to.